Another episode of Silo is here, season 3, episode 2. I thought it was a decent episode. I don't know if this is one of the all-time episodes, but it definitely moved the story along. I do remember being more what's the word I'm looking for? Like integrated in season 1 and 2 in these first couple episodes, but it's okay. Maybe we need a slow burn. But we do have two storylines going on at the same time of the DC storyline and Juliet's storyline. So we have to remember that both will probably run concurrently. Both will pick up at the same time. So we are for some heat later on in the season. I just thought this episode was kind of like a middle of the pack episode. Not bad, but it's worth watching because it's Silo and it's awesome. And Juliet, Rebecca Ferguson, come on, man. But yeah, big moments of this episode. We have the vitamin compound at the end of the episode being put into the waters to make everybody forget. Now, I'm not a fan of the way this is going. I feel like the memory loss stuff is a little less interesting, just personally from a viewer perspective. And I said last week, I hope that they move along quickly with the Juliet memory loss, amnesia storyline, and I hope they do the same with the Charlotte storyline. And we have some interesting. I feel like the Charlotte one's actually more interesting at this point with the memories, like the conversation that Daniel had with the doctor. I thought that was a pretty interesting conversation, and that's more interesting than like most of the things going on with Juliet's like memory loss aspect. But that's just my opinion. So yeah, it's getting crazy up in the silo, and I don't know what's going to happen because it's kind of like on a fake peace terms right now where you don't have the rebellion people are kind of chill because Juliet's in charge, but it's not really Juliet. It's kind of Camille's running everything. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens after the end of this episode or after the end of this run here and the end of this season. I think it's going to be a banger to end out the season, especially with all the stuff happening before the silo. I think that stuff will be super cool. So we'll have to see what happens with that. So getting into the episode from the top, we have once again, we left off last week with Juliet taking the note out of her soup and realizing, hey, this is not good, that I need to go and find this person to talk to at the marketplace and figure out what's really happening to me to get the true story because I'm being told lies. And, or at least she was not confident that she was being told the truth about the refugee hut. And, she just walked back and, Bernard, the whole Bernard of it all. So, unfortunately for us, we're thrown right into the depths because Camille is talking to the AI right away, and the AI already knows. So apparently, this AI, it makes sense that the AI just has eyes and everything inside of the silo. And I'm wondering now, I'm curious, is this the same AI that was talking to Lucas Kyle when he got to the bottom of the silo? And where is Lucas Kyle? That's kind of our next big reveal as we met one of our we'll talk about in a second. We got Patrick Kennedy back this episode, and we got Danny back, who I never thought I'd see back on my screen. And so now I'm just wondering, where's Lucas Kyle? And is Bernard really dead? That type, maybe they're teamed up somewhere. I didn't check the credits. I was actually like, I kept the theme song on. You just skip the theme song for any episode that's not the first or the last of the season. But I didn't notice if Tim Robbins was in the credits. So is he dead for sure? Do we know that for sure? I'm not positive, but I would like say he's probably 85% chance he's dead, but you never know. Bernard. So we'll go back to that. But Camille's talking to this AI bro, and like I was just thinking about this. What is the AI's objective, and why is Camille just like, all yes, like God save me, like this is like a religion to her, like every word that the AI says, she listens to, like hello, like there's other thoughts in your head that you can execute upon, but she's really just like following out this AI's order. And is this an indictment on society of where, not to get too deep on the silo recap, but like is this an indictment on society of where we're heading, following AI, not having opinions of our own, thoughts of our own? Maybe that's a podcast for a different day, but why is Camille following this almighty AI who's like clearly, and I guess it happened the same thing to Solo in season 2. I don't trust AIs, and that's not even like in regards to real life. Like I just don't trust AIs in this show. I feel like they have malintentions. I feel like they're very, the thing about AIs is they can't comprehend human emotion and like that type of impact. So I'm not fully trusting of this AI that's talking to Camille, and I don't like the way Camille's character. I mentioned this last week. I just don't like how she's basically a shill for this AI now. Where I thought she was actually like a really cool character in the first couple seasons because she had, like was kind of doing her own thing. She was ex judicial. She was running around like had her own motivations, trying to help control Sims. By the way, no Sims in this episode. I just realized, but she was kind of had her own narratives, and now I guess she still does, but it's just like this AI that's like telling her what to do. So I hope she figures out something to like outsmart the AI or stops like following the AI. I doubt that's going to happen though. But they know about the note to Juliet, which is concerning. But the AI is not too concerned about that note. The note's not too bad, but you need to get her back on the drugs, double the dosage, blah 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 blah. And an interesting factoid here dropped by the AI is that this silo was reset 150 years ago. So I believe that might be around the Salvador Quinn time. So maybe that was the whole part of this, was the silo was reset, and then maybe some of those what are they called, artifacts? Maybe those stayed in circulation. It's it's interesting, and I think we'll learn a lot more about the history of said silo as we move on and find out more about what's going on with Daniel. And I wonder if Daniel, if he's involved in this as well, if this was his silo, or he just was in one of those like random, I don't know, what did Daniel go to a silo, did he create the silos, what's his deal going on with this one, and we'll find out more about Daniel. Speaking of Daniel, he hears about Charlotte's new condition, which is explained to him by this doctor character who we are led to believe is kind of a sketchy character through Helen, but we don't really see that on screen of him doing anything with malintentions. He is talking to Daniel and says, we need to rebuild Charlotte's memory, but we can kind of build it however we want and take away the bad stuff. And this just seems too good to be true. I think it's one of those situations where you need the good with the bad in order to have you can't just live with all positives. And there's something I watched recently that was kind of like this, but I feel like this is too good to be true for sure, and something bad's gonna happen with this if they try to go this route. I could see them not going this route and like trying to switch it up. I don't. And Daniel, my thing with Daniel is like he loves his sister so much. They talk every day apparently, but the first question he asks is like, so I can just take away some of her, or I can implant a lie, bro. Like let's rehabilitate first before you start scheming on trying to like control your sister's mind. And he's like later says that it's some qualities he wants to get out of her, whatever. But he meets back up with Helen. Now I like Helen. I do like Helen because she kind of just owns him in this conversation. Daniel's supposed to be this like congressman, but Helen's like, you really thought you were just having a meeting with a reporter for like nothing. And the aide to the senator also kind of roasts him in this scenario. So I'm used to Daniel, the actor of Daniel, being Nate on Succession, who's like one of my least favorite characters. To see him kind of get owned here was funny, but I am rooting for him. I'm curious to see what happens with this storyline. I think it's kind of a cool dichotomy of storylines. I might have talked about this last week, but if we just had the storyline of Juliet and like her amnesia, like that would bore me to death. Like if we've seen the amnesia stuff, like let's get her memory back. We'll get to that in a second, but yeah, obviously Helen is going to be a big part of this moving forward. So that's kind of the power players over there. We have Helen, the doctor, Charlotte in a bad condition, and then we'll get to another character that we meet on later on in the episode. So in a conversation between Juliet makes her way down to the deeper levels to try and talk to Knox and Shirley, and Knox mentions to Juliet that Camille gave them all instructions on how to talk to Juliet. So that kind of makes sense and why it's been a little rough to start at least. And the true friends of Juliet, like Walker, Knox. Well, Knox seems like he's been around talking to her, but like Shirley's like too scared to talk to her because they don't want to mess with her recovery because they might be buying this bit, which is I'm curious where we see where like Patrick Kennedy, and we'll talk about him in a second, but like we see where those people fall on the scale, but I'm curious where like Shirley and like Knox specifically fall on the scale. Like, do they believe that Juliet's really like gone through this traumatic injury? And even last week, Juliet told Shirley like, "Hey, I had this dream or memory of me doing this," and Shirley just like ran away. I don't think what Shirley's got going on, and Walker kind of explains it to her like she was the first one to see you and ran up to you and was like running all around the place looking for you, then she should be more positive when she sees her now, And it's probably hard to have a strong face when you're friends in a different condition, in a bad condition like that. But I don't know. I feel like what's going on with Shirley? Like, let's figure the Shirley shit out. Like, I feel like the Juliet stuff, like, we have so much going on in the silo right now. We can just, like, wrap some of this stuff up quickly. And I'm sure, there are good moments in this episode. I'll get to that. But, like, this just feels like a, like, point A to point B kind of episode for me. It is what it is. But there's stuff we need to clear up, and I was glad to see on the next point, Walker. Walker is back, and I have to say I loved Walker in season one. Like would never leave the her place, never would walk outside. But season two, her story arc with Carla, it was like a little much in my opinion. Maybe I'm whatever, but I feel like they were kind of focusing on that and kind of ruined the. Well, I guess that's kind of the thing is like Walker has this wall up, and then you like see her get to her deep side and like her emotional bag. Okay, I'll accept it. But to see Walker back, and I was curious, where is she? Because she wasn't even part of episode one. Here she is, and she's back, and she is not playing no games with Juliet, bro. She roasts Juliet for being fragile, and tries to rough her up a little bit. And Juliet's like, I physically can't remember. And Walker's like, well, then just try, try harder. And I was kind of laughing at this scene. That was funny. But I love Walker, and I hope we get more. Her and Juliet's relationship specifically is super awesome. So I hope we see more of that in the coming episodes, which I'm sure we will. Um, and we'll keep cutting back and forth. So we're back in DC now. Charlotte is talking to Helen, the reporter. Helen, it seems like we're led to believe that Helen's like this malintentioned character. She's trying to scam school, some information out of Charlotte about the Iran operation. But it gives Charlotte like a PTSD memory of her in a car with Helen writing things down on a pad. So there's more to be unlocked there. Like I'm saying, like this is just an episode of like here's something, and we're gonna find out about it later maybe. There is like a couple big reveals, but Charlotte, what is going on? Help us, help me, help you. Like, what can we do for you? What's going on? She knew some sketchy stuff was going on in Iran. Apparently, she tells Daniel. Well, actually, we'll get to that in a second. But this is like a tweak scene where Charlotte's like, "What's going on?" Like PTSD, tough to watch. And Helen's like, it's just chilling. And then we see the old man, which is the scariest part, up on the porch, who was the person Charlotte was like directly avoiding on the train, and then like saw on the train state on the metro. I talked about the metro, the Washington D.C. metro last week, but she avoided her or avoided him there, but now he's there. And I was curious because I was like, the doctor, is that him? Because I know we were supposed to believe, or we were supposed to keep an eye on this old man character because Charlotte was like specifically avoiding him. However, that wasn't him. It was the guy now is on the porch watching them. So I'm curious to see what happens with that. And I might have already mentioned this episode. I forget if this was in this episode or the short. I have seen the season preview of it was on YouTube. It was a 2-minute video or so of like them talking about what's to expect the rest of the season. There's gonna be a fuck ton of characters coming out of Washington D.C. So just get ready for that. I think we got to just lock in for that and just try and keep our we're early in this season. There's 10 episode seasons for Silo, so we got to be locked in and remember who these people are. So far we only have a couple of characters to keep watch for in DC, but I'm a little definitely out on the man on the porch. I think something's going on with him. Maybe he's like Navy, like he's like ex-commando, some type of shit. I don't know. And then the doctor, I'm pretty out on as well. After Helen like explains what's going on with him to Daniel, that was in the first conversation they had, where she's like, he tried to help veterans. Like, was he really trying to help, or does he has trauma? The aide for the senator like kind of believes in that, so it's kind of curious to see where we go with that doctor. I don't trust the doctor, and I don't trust the old man. Anyways, my favorite part of this episode. So Julia got the note. She causes a distraction by pushing her security guard. Says like, "Get your hands off me!" And then the mob takes over. Which Julia has a huge fan club in the silo right now, which we'll talk about in a second. But it leads her down a path, and we see Patrick freaking Kennedy. Man, I don't love Patrick Kennedy. I'm not like, oh, Patrick Kennedy, blah. But to see him back on screen, he's got the long beard, he's got the mustache, he's got the long hair. He's been in hiding, he's been off the radar. But to see him, and not only him, but Danny, who I never thought I'd see ever again. Come on, man, that was hype to see both of them together. And Danny was cool, and I think season 1 he was in with the computer. But to see him back on the show is awesome, and to see them both of them together, and then that person who was helping with the sheriff's department, I can't remember her name, with Juliet, is also there helping the cause, which she was kind of like a good goody two shoes to see her kind of go for Juliet's cause. The people are turning, and the people still want answers. So good to see them all back together. They have limited time together, of course, because the police end up coming and looking for Juliet. She's the freaking mayor now. But while Juliet's there, she gets a couple of tidbits. They bring out the helmets and be like, this is the one you used, and this is the one they said you used. Some discrepancies there, which maybe will help her unlock some more memories. I think she had a memory of something popped into her head when they showed her the helmet, so maybe she'll be able to expand upon that more. Like, let's wrap it. Yeah, let's get going. But not only that, they tell her not to take the pills, which is a big part of this episode. Patrick Kennedy was offered pills by Sims to cause a riot and to forget everything and to forget that he led to his wife's grave. And so that's important, of them telling her not to take the pills, because that will have an effect later on. And the pills are really like slowing down Juliet's memory, and maybe this will help like unclog the memory brain. So I did like them. That was some good advice out of them. Back in DC, we learn more about Charlotte's narrative. So she was in the car working with Helen. Helen explains this all to Daniel when she's like somehow in like custody of like the rehabilitation center. I don't really know what's going on there, but she was suspect in the mission to Iran, and they had switched out the comms which is super interesting because they went back to an 80s system of like, it seems like almost like a false flag. That might be the wrong term. I hope it's not, but it's like they were faking the operation on Iran to like, or they're faking the quote unquote dirty bomb from Iran to like start a war with Iran for whatever reason. So that's supposedly what we're being told by Helen. And then this mission, they don't really know what's going on. The old communications, they don't want people to like pick up on their logs to know what they were doing. So it seems like in this story, the U.S. has got some sus things going on with Iran, and they're kind of the antagonists of this situation. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Um, yeah, so I'm curious. I'm actually like I'm kind of more invested in the Charlotte storyline until Juliet starts remembering more. I'm just being honest. Like I'm kind of curious to see where this goes and how we got to where we are. So they're doing a good job with that storyline, in my opinion. Back in the silo, Juliet is not a big fan of her fan club. So she just, one of her fans comes up to her, has the classic Juliet tattoo, which I don't love. I don't really like tattoos if you know me, but whatever. She's got the Juliet tattoo on her shoulder. She's like, Juliet's like, do you know what that means? And then the girl's like, no, but it's you had it, so you're awesome, and we got it too. And then Juliet's like, you're an idiot, because that means nothing to me anymore. So you're just dumb for getting that tattoo. Did it hurt? And she's like, yeah. But I think the girl ends up like winning the exchange by being like, well, maybe it could mean something, like stop being a fucking dumbass, Juliet. And I didn't like the scene out of Juliet. Usually a pretty rootable character, but I was like, what are you doing here? We're kind of, it's like that shell of Juliet. It's not truly her, we need to get her, the true Juliet back, the firecracker that Walker's trying to draw out, that Knox is trying to draw out a little bit, and that Patrick Kennedy and them were trying to draw out. So, like I've said a million times already in this podcast, let's get it going. So continuing on with that theme, she goes back to her place, does not take the pills. Now, the toughest part of this episode for me to believe is that the nurse is going into her room every day and checking to see if she took the pills or not. Obviously, they have the cameras everywhere to see whatever. Did Camille know the cameras? Like, I'd buy that more than the nurse just being like, let me make sure she took her pills today. Whatever. But the nurse notices. So the AI was like very cautiously optimistic that they would be able to solve this with Juliet. I'm wondering if the developments of this episode, her talking to Patrick Kennedy, her talking or not, her not taking the pills, I wonder if that accelerates anything. I don't know. The nurse knows about it, so I'm assuming Camille knows about it. And then ends off the episode with them saying, you know what, fuck the pills. We're going in the water supply. So everyone's taking these pills, or everyone's going to be taking this vitamin now. I don't know how this is going to be prevented. I don't know how they're going to stop this. If people are like, oh shit, I don't remember what happened yesterday, maybe we should like stop drinking water, but water supply, who knows? I don't know. Favoriteest episode I'm giving to Walker, Beast of Juliet, and least favorite I'm giving to Camille. Stop listening to fucking AI. You're being dumb and annoying. So that's really about episode 2 for Silo. Come back weekly for more podcasts on Silo, House of the Dragon recovering right now as well. And I'll leave y'all with that. As always, be easy, y'all.